Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high. Cause St. Louis is ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody rise up weekdays. Catch us live somebody. Let's go.
Good evening. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys all doing well out there. Hope this show finds you in great spirits, as it should. We're getting ready. It is almost that time, y'all. It is almost that time. Let me just make sure some things aren't, okay, making sure everything's muted and all of that. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my gosh. Thank you guys all y'all for coming in and filing in for the night I think we've all been waiting for a long time. Let's keep it real. All right. We've been waiting for a while for this to happen. I mean, as soon as Biden stepped down and Harris was announced to take over as the running for the president's seat. But here it is, though. No matter what, this is going to be a very, very interesting night. And there's a lot that needs to happen. Okay. There's a lot that needs to happen in this whole debate. And I'm really looking forward to it. So before I continue yammering on, because we still got about 15 minutes till this whole thing goes down. And of course, we'll talk. We're going to talk, and we're going to talk during the debate, and we're going to talk a little bit after the debate. Okay. But nonetheless, it is happening. And I think that everybody and their mama is stopping at nothing to see this, right? I mean, I think there's watch parties going on at bars and stuff. Real talk. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. So do me a favor, okay? I appreciate you guys spending the time with me because you guys could be spending your time anywhere else, okay? So I do appreciate you guys watching this here with me. So hit that like button down below. Hit that reaction button if you can. That'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, if you're watching on other platforms, do not forget to crush that subscribe button, please and thank you, okay? We're working hard out here in these streets right here on my main channel. So hit that subscribe button here on my main channel. Go to my secondary channel, The Pascal Show Clips. That's where you're going to get shorter videos, even clips from this show or from shows that we do over there on the secondary channel. So please go over there. All right. Subscribe. I'm working towards getting to 10K on the secondary channel. So if you can get to the second channel and hit that subscribe button, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay. Follow on all my platforms. Okay. Facebook, X/Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Show some love over there as well if you're on those as well. And of course, hey, check out my membership, okay, by simply hitting that join button down below. Become a member, support the channel if you can. And of course, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/The Pascal Show. Become a patron or check out pascalmerch.com. In fact, this is one of the t-shirts right here, straight out of Nightmares. One of the holiday t-shirts, one of the Halloween t-shirts that we have out right now with all the famous bad guys. Okay, all the famous horror flick monsters. Okay, I just like this one a lot. I think it's kind of fire. Look at that. That's fire. Okay, whoop. Pretty fire. Okay, so go check it out. It's on the website, pascalmerch.com. Okay, guys, sorry, had to say that because I just got this, so I'm very excited about it. Okay, I wanted to share this with you guys just in time for Halloween. Okay. I got a feeling somebody's watching me. You know what I mean? We're almost getting there. It's almost that season. I mean, I know everybody and their mama drinking the hell out of those pumpkin spice lattes and all that stuff. Okay. So we are definitely in the season. All right. Even before these leaves start falling, everybody in this season. All right. But, oh, wow. Some crazy stuff that's going on tonight. Okay. It's Monday Night Football. Are you ready for some football? I'm kidding. We got Harris and Trump, or Trump v. Harris, however you want to call it. Okay. Going head to head for the first time ever. And the thing is that I think that a lot of us are very a lot of us are very interested in hearing Harris. I know. Some of you guys are like, boo, Harris, boo. I know. I already know what the chat is going to be like tonight. It's going to be insane. There's going to be people out here that are going to feel some type of way about Harris. There's going to be people who feel some type of way about Trump. But here's the thing, though. We've already heard Trump a lot. We haven't heard much from Harris. Yes, I know she's the VP right now. She's the current VP of these United States. But at the same time, though, we haven't really heard her talk, right? We haven't heard her say what she needs to say. And I think this is going to be a very crucial debate for little Miss Harris. Real talk. Because this is going to be an opportunity for her to speak to the American people, especially all the people out there that are maybe sitting on the fence going, I don't know if I'm going to vote for her. You know, she cool, but I don't know. Or she could have done better as VP, or her past is such and such. Or they sit there and say, I don't even know what her policies are and what she's all about. This is the opportunity tonight for her to sit there and say, this is what I stand for. This is what I'm here for. This is what I'm rocking with. This is what I'm not rocking with. And so on. The other thing too, though, which is very important, because let's be real. Okay. And Casey Parker, I understand that you say, let's hear her lies, but there's a lot of people that would say the same thing about Trump too. Just being honest and just being fair. I'm sitting on the fence right now, okay? Playing a little devil's advocate, all right? So, sure, they both lie. What else is new? They're politicians, aren't they? They're equipped to lie and say it with so much certainty, especially with this hand, this thing, like they're playing drums. I approve this message. You know what I'm saying? I did not have, those relations, in the Oval Office, right? And I mean this because I'm holding my hand just like this, like I'm holding a drumstick, right? So this is going to be very interesting. The other part that I'm interested in too, because I got a little sidetracked, okay? Casey's got a point, though. But it's on both of them. Both of them, though. We're going to sit there and go, and that's a lie, Trump, and that's a lie, Harris. We're going to be doing on both, okay? But I understand some people are like, pro-Trump, and some people are pro-Harris. It's all good. They both are going to lie. Let's get ready for it, okay? But here's the thing, especially when it comes to Harris, because let's be real. Like I've already said before, we have heard Trump talk. Okay, with all due respect, we've already heard Trump talk countless times. He's on 15 million emails, 15 million podcasts, 15 million live random impromptu press conferences that he's had and all that stuff. We've been seeing all that, right? And we know how he likes to ramble and talk. I'm very curious because this is also crucial for Harris as well. We got both people in the room, right? Talking. I'm very interested in how she's going to handle him. You got to remember, if she doesn't handle him very well, people are going to look at that and go, if she can't handle Trump, how's she going to handle other foreign leaders, radical leaders that are out here wanting to do crazy stuff to our country or to their own countries, so on and so forth? How's she going to handle such a big personality, for lack of a better term, like Donald J. Trump? If she can't handle this debate, it's a wrap, son. It's a wrap. In fact, it's more like this. Just saying, it'll be a wrap, because everyone will be like, oh, damn. Kind of like what happened with Biden v. Trump or Trump v. Biden. Biden was up there. He was doing okay for a second there, and it went crashed and burned, right? It was an embarrassment, right? And we're like, oh, damn, Biden. Oh. We all sat there. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh. You know what I mean? Where the person goes, oh, I can sing. I can sing. And then they're like, okay. They're going up to the talent show in front of thousands of people, and they just totally bite it. And they're the worst singer in the world. And it's your friend. And you're like, oh, damn. Oh, no, Biden. Oh, no. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, oh, no. No. And then they come back like, I don't understand. I did good. And you're like, yeah, you did that. Amen. Okay, it was bad. Okay, we all did that. Even the people who don't like Biden, we're all like, oh no. That happened, okay? So I am very, very interested to see what happens here for this, okay? And it's crucial, like I said, extremely important that they have, that Harris has a successful debate. There's a lot of pressure on her. Like I said, a lot of this is going to be people focusing on Harris. Everybody. Trump supporters are going to be focusing on Harris. Harris supporters are going to be focusing on Harris. Even the moderates out here that haven't made a decision on who they're voting for are going to be mainly focusing on Harris. Let's keep it a buck. And I'm saying that because that's the most crucial part, right? We don't know her in a way. Some of us don't fully know her policies, what she's standing for, what she's not standing for. And real talk, I know that she's said and talked about policies, and she had an interview recently and all that. But at the same time, not everybody saw that interview. But everybody and their mama going to be watching this debate. Trust and believe. So this part is absolutely crucial. Okay? So, again, there are watch parties going on. Not only just here with us, not with, you know what I mean? I'm talking about like actual watering holes, actual bars and restaurants are holding full-on debate watch parties in their bars, getting people together to watch this because of how big of a deal this is. Even people who out here, who aren't out here politicking, are watching this because they want to know exactly who Harris is. We already know. We already know who Trump is. We already know. Love him or hate him, we already know who Trump is. But we really need to get to know who the hell Kamala Harris is. Other than her sitting there going, oh, I can crack an egg with one arm, with one hand. Congratulations. We need to know a little bit more about you. Real talk. Okay? So, very interested to see what happens here. I'm going to pull up, this is NBC News. They're kind of like chopping it up, talking about everything. I want to see what they got to say. So let's take a listen. And also, I can dance. Yeah. And the laugh and all that stuff and her joy. Like I've seen some, and it's interesting because, you see these videos that are out here and they'll sit there and go, oh yeah, who are you voting for? And they're like, oh, Harris all day long. And they're like, why? Because she brings so much joy. She brings a newfound joy to the office. Now, I understand that some of these guys are biased and they're going to cut out people who are maybe putting out good points, solid points and solid reasons why they're voting for Harris. But I've seen those videos, right? I've seen plenty of those videos out here showing, oh yeah, is there her joy? Her immense amount of joy? It's like, okay, great. What, anything about her policies? Anything? So hopefully now the individuals that are out here that are saying Harris all day and saying it's because of her joy, hopefully they're coming out of this with, oh, she has some policies. She stands on this. She doesn't stand on that. And I know that she said a lot at the DNC. She did say a lot. Thought it was a damn good speech for what it's worth. I'll be honest. I liked how concise and short it was. In comparison to Trump's. I mean, come on. He was up there and he was rambling for 2 hours. It was a long rant, okay? But I appreciate that whoever wrote that speech for her kept it short and sweet, at least shorter than his, okay? So, like I said, this is going to be very, very interesting. Another thing I want to point out before we go into listening to Lester Holt, okay, who I think he's fantastic. That's not a dig at Lester Holt, okay? I think he's great. Great guy. One thing I thought it was interesting. Sorry, I have it screenshotted on my phone. I just wanted to pull this up. Apparently, tonight is going to be very interesting. So the rules of the game are going to be a bit interesting. Like I said 15 different times. Okay? I need to pull out a thesaurus and find a different word for interesting. But moving on. They say Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have their first presidential debate tonight, okay? They will have no audience, so no audience will be there, as you guys see right there. I love it as like, president. They're prepping for a football, like this is the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Debate night. You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy with the crazy drone, like the crane shot coming in and all that stuff? 2 podiums, 2 people. 1 presidential seat. It's crazy. But moving on, there will be no audience. They will have no notes. Oh, they won't have notes. So they won't have notes. Here's the other part too. And muted microphones, except when it's their turn to speak. So, no audience, no notes, and muted microphones, except when it's their time to speak. This is going to be very interesting. Because didn't Biden, like when Biden and Trump went after each other in the last debate, didn't they have notes? Didn't they have notes? Didn't they? Okay. I could have sworn that they did, but I could be wrong. All right. But they are not allowed to have notes. Their microphones will be muted when they speak. And it looks like it's on and popping. Let's go.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before. which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Look on her face is hilarious.
I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. when we know that she was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID?
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that.
What?
And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Damn.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here.
Damn.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular, the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea, and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond. But I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs, barely can afford to do it. And what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
Under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question. Would you veto?
You could do abortions
So much
in
for
the
the
7th
muted
month,
mics.
the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Stop.
And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as the rallies are concerned, as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
He's wrong for that one,
but the people on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
Yikes.
Talk about extreme.
Yikes.
You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
excuse me, the FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues that
things
we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
you. You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes, sir.
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath. if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed. Those people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I said that sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders. And we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they said we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight.
Hit
he said
that like
he didn't
button,
say
guys.
that he lost by a whisker, so he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed, and now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot
He
more to get
went
to.
there.
Turning now to
Yes.
the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans
my
among
God.
them. Vice President Harris, in
This
December,
debate is
you said,
insane.
quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population, because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
What? A commercial? What? Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Okay, first off, hamburger. Woo! Okay, guys, let me just tell you this. This is night and day, y'all. This is night and day, yo. Wow. Let me just tell you. Yes, we need a commercial. Everyone's just sitting there going like, I need to pee, but I gotta hold it in as long as I gotta hold it in. I gotta hold it in as long as I can. Oh my gosh. Okay. First off, wow. So far, wow. Wow.
Thank you. You'll be voting for me. Oh, that's sweet of you guys to say. Thank you so much. But here it is, though. Okay. This is okay for some of you guys. Some of you guys are kind of like rolling your head and rolling your eyes. I mean, and just kind of like meh, the entire thing. For me, this is night and day from what we've been seeing, guys. I mean, let's be real. To me, this debate is electric. I'm just gonna say it. Oh my gosh, this has my full attention, absolute full attention. Because both of them are going after each other. And it's that kind of debate that I've been waiting for, man. Yes. Where's Biden, though? I'm kidding. But still, this is the kind of debate that I was looking for, right? When Biden, like, let's be real. We weren't going to get it from Biden, okay? When he came in, we saw that, all right? We knew it was going to be a little, we are all, like I said, like that friend at the talent show going, oh, you can't, oh, no. You know what I mean? But this one here, though, I'm like, oh, okay, now we have a debate. Now I get it. Some people are already biased walking into this mug, okay? Already going, nah, I don't like her. I see it in the chat. Some of y'all like, she's terrible. Some of y'all like, he's terrible. But I will tell you this, they're going tete-a-tete. They're going neck and neck. They're going straight in. They're locking horns, and I am here for it. This is the debate I was hoping that we were going to get a few months ago with Biden. It just didn't work out with Biden, okay? He's not well. I'm glad he stepped down. I'm glad he's retiring, okay? Thank you for so much for serving our country, right? But at the same time, now that we have this debate, how's it making you feel? How's it making you feel? Okay, I got a couple super chats and all that stuff, so let me get this. Aw, Grace, thank you so much, Pascal 2024. I have those t-shirts available just like this one, okay? Just like this t-shirt. Go get it, pascalmerch.com, okay? Please and thank you. Thank you so much for saying that, though. That's very sweet. Chelsea by the Sea. Student loan relief is the same lie as affordable child care, housing, and insurance. It is a lie. They are not delivering it. Yeah, I mean, let's be real. We heard the same story. Let me put that up so I don't forget. Same thing about the student loan relief, and Trump ain't wrong. It is a complete cluster F. They were trying to make those things happen, and what happened? Nothing, right? Bupkis, nada, zilch, zippity doodah. But at the same time, she's not the one spearheading it, right? As Trump said, her boss was spearheading this, right? So it would be interesting to see what she does if she was in office about the affordable childcare, housing, and insurance, because that is attractive. We can all agree that is pretty damn attractive, right? But again, it could be a ploy just to get the votes, right? Just to get like no new taxes, like Bush Sr. said one time back in the day. No new taxes. And everyone was like, ah! And then he came in, he got voted in, and then nothing changed. Nothing changed at all, man. Okay? So very good point, though. Very, very good point. CL, thank you so much. Or CI, thank you so much for the super sticker. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so very much. I think we're back into this here in just a minute. But again, tired as a mother, all I'm going to say, if Trump went to the island, okay, that we all know, and that was not the Love Island or whatever the hell that island was. The plane. I forgot the name of it. But anyway, wouldn't they have indicted him on that already? People are crazy. Yeah, 2024 is wild, and I am quite curious about that as well. Good question. Okay, but let's continue on. They're back in
Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I don't
know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently over the course of his career attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on
to
to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond because
Trump,
the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
going
just need
to move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better.
Correct.
Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay. Wow. Well. The hits just keep on coming. Like I said, you know, I had a feeling this was going to be an electric night. You know what I'm saying? And it definitely has been. Okay. One thing I have noticed is that he's been very vocal. Okay. That's one thing we all know about Trump. All right. He is very, very vocal. And I think it's very interesting when you see them, you know, when he's sitting there like trying to, you know, when they're trying to move on, because like I said before, I mean, what time is it right now? This debate is supposed to be an hour and a half. That's what it was supposed to be, but it's not. Why is it not? Because of the interruptions, right? It's the Kamala will say something, Trump will sit there and go, I got to respond to that. And he'll talk over the hosts of this debate, you know what I mean? Who are actually throwing out the questions, trying to, you know, be the master of ceremonies, you know, control the event and everything, right? So it's very, very interesting, okay? But again, you know, I'm wondering what you guys think. I mean, the poll is up, right? How do you think these two are doing? You know, you either vote one or the other. I know that there's going to be people who are biased, okay? But be honest. Try to watch this with try to just be unbiased, right? And yes, they are both interrupting. I think what happened is, Trump has just been a lot more vocal when it comes to, when they're about to go into that next question or that next topic. He'll be like, no, he fights through it to try to get his point across, which is fine. It is what it is. He needs to say what he needs to say, and this is his time to speak his side. But it's interesting the amount of stuff that has been said from both parties, right? It's interesting to see what they've been talking about. I mean, everything from, after the break, we went into Taliban, we went into race in politics, the Affordable Care Act, and all that. It's just been very interesting how they have been So it's been very interesting how they've been responding to certain questions. Because let's be real, there are certain things that Kamala Harris is not directly answering, but then I could say the same thing about Trump too. There are questions he's not directly answering. He kind of, they kind of waltz around the question, right? And give some backwards, like word salad answer to the question that these hosts are asking as well. It is very interesting, right? But there are a few things that are being said that Trump has said earlier on in the debate that not the greatest things in the world, right? That we just talked about Kamala Harris and her promises, like, oh, we're going to give you more money. You know what I mean? I'm going to give you more money, we're going to give you write-offs for your child and so on and so forth, so you can buy a car and a car seat and baby food and stuff like that for your baby. Okay, I'd like to see it actually happen, right? I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? But let me give some of these super chats here really quick before it gets too late. S-Dubs, thank you so much. I feel like a child and my parents be fighting. No kidding. Hey, you know what I mean? It's like, just love each other. Maria, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Beautiful Messy Ball, thank you so much. Remember, only one ticket on the ballot has received votes, and one never received a single vote for position on the ballot. Where's the democracy? Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, absolutely, but at the same time, that is unfortunately this is the plate that we're served. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish it was a different situation as well. I don't like that either. I wish we had other choices as well, but unfortunately, this is the choice that we got, and of course, we got to see how she performs. This is one, hopefully, of a couple other debates coming up here very, very soon. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And especially if you're not happy with Trump, this is the only option you got. So you got to see how she performs and how she presents herself in this debate and the other ones to come. But this one is electric, in my personal opinion.
The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
Wow. Okay, guys. All right. There's a lot to look at. Hold on. Let's hear what they got to say.
Pick your adjective. I would go with fiery to begin, but it goes from there. Both the candidates, you could argue, executing on their strategy going in. For Kamala Harris, that was to get under the former president's skin, which she did quite often. For the former president, his option was, of course, to go after the economy, after Afghanistan, the administration's position on the withdrawal in Afghanistan. And immigration, of course. This is exactly what they wanted. The question is how they got there and along the way, I think.
Well, people are going to be talking about this debate for a long time. And is this the final debate? Is this the only one we're going to see? Will there be another? Well, it depends on how each candidate feels they did tonight. Let's bring back our moderator, Meet the Press, Kristen Welker, our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. Boy, do we have a lot to chew over here.
Yes,
I mean, let's talk about, first of all, it does seem that Kamala Harris was trying to hit every trigger point she could think of to try to get Donald Trump to respond to her and to kind of fall into bait him into that trap. Do you think it was effective?
Well, let's just name a few. Abortion, January 6th, his former officials who are now critical of him. John McCain, which is a big trigger point.
His rally size.
His rally size, one of the biggest ones that gets under his skin. One of his allies said she clearly tried to get under his skin. He's being defensive way too much. He's losing his answers. For example, instead of borders are, we had eating pets. Of course, that theory that Springfield officials in Ohio are saying there's no proof that undocumented immigrants are eating pets, something that we've heard from Trump and his campaign. And I think that allies are expressing concern about the fact that he didn't do what they were hoping he would do, which is to stay on message, to talk about his strengths. There were some unanswered questions as well. It's worth noting out on both sides. Harris never answered whether you're better off than you were 4 years ago. She also didn't say what she would have done differently on immigration. Trump, by the way, didn't answer the critical question. Would he veto a national abortion ban if it came to his desk? I asked J.D. Vance if Trump would do that. He said, yes, he would. Trump said tonight, well, he didn't check with me before saying that. So some differences there. Again, how does this play with those swing voters?
What are Republicans saying tonight that you
Now, the thing is that is very, very true. OK, this is very, obviously there were a lot of questions that were not, or there were some questions, not a lot, not all questions, but some questions that weren't answered by Harris and by Trump. Right. You just heard two of them right there. Two examples of those things, especially when it came to the abortion conversation. Right. Obviously, that is a very big conversation that needs to be brought up. I mean, obviously, we all have our own personal opinions about how that should be approached. I believe, in my personal opinion, it's the woman's right. That's what I think. I think it's taking women's rights away for sure. Like I said, there are a lot of people who lean right that believe that piece with this whole situation about about abortion, about that particular right, it being taken away, is a huge problem. I agree with that. I do agree with that. I wasn't happy when it did actually happen, but at the same time, I'm a man. Okay. As far as my opinion goes, that's just my opinion, right? It's really up to what you women out there feel about that. And I know that a large portion of the world feels some type of way about what has happened. I see a lot of dangers in it. Okay. But again, I am just a man, right? I am just a guy. All right. But that is my opinion. Okay. And it should be respected, just like, if you have the opposing, if you have an opposing view on that, then that's on you. You know what I mean? But it is interesting that when he talked about that, or you veto that if it came across your desk, he didn't answer that, right? He didn't He didn't answer that. And then, of course, when JD Vance said, "Oh yeah, absolutely, he would," you know what I mean? He's like, "I didn't answer that. No. But I haven't had that conversation with JD Vance." So that's a big problem, right? That's a huge problem. Hearing something like that being said, right? It's like, okay, is JD Vance just saying that to sound good, or did they really have a conversation about it and now Trump is trying to save face? That's a possibility. That's a question as well. The other question is that on top of that is Kamala Harris. When they asked, like what she just talked about before, in the last 4 years, how's the economy? Speaking about the economy over the last 4 years, what did she do? What did she happen to say? What did she talk? What did she say? What was her answer? She was dancing around that doggone question, dancing around it. But then she's like, "I promise to give you guys relief. More money if you start popping out babies and stuff like that. If you have a baby, we're gonna give you more money. So you can get that car seat, so you can get that car, so you can put food on the table for your kids." Okay, cool. But like we just talked about earlier, is it really going to happen, right? She could say it all day long, because let's be real, they're all politicians. They're all politicians. They say a bunch of things that never happen. I know, we saw Trump come in, and as soon as he came in, there was a lot of things that changed, right? But with this situation, I feel like there's a lot of movements, a lot of verbiage to try to win the people over, right? As best as they can, right? And, again, what say you on this? I got like 1,200 votes on this poll. So please make sure you go to that poll and keep hitting that like button down below. Love to get it past 1K likes. That would really, really mean the world to me. Okay. Because we are going to talk about a few things, and I'm probably going to do a recap show tomorrow to talk more about like some of the other points that happened throughout this thing. But I will tell you one thing that did just turn me off in the debate. Okay. It's when Trump was saying stuff. It was when Trump was saying some things that I don't think he should be saying, because I think it's a little reckless. And of course, it's just reckless. Let me show you what I mean. Hold on. Let me pull this up. Let me just show you what I mean. Because I did pull up a couple things. And, that reporter also brought it up as well. And I think this is a big problem right here. Okay. This moment was a big problem. Big problem, in my personal opinion. Like I said, everything else, it seemed to be groovy, seemed to be gravy, the typical stuff that we hear, right? Same thing. Harris said some things. I'm like, yo, are you going to answer the question, or are you just going to dance around it? But this part right here, you heard me verbally say no. And it aggravates me because this felt personal to me too. I'll explain in a little bit. Let me just play what I mean. All right, let's hear this.
Happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason to our country.
Okay. So you heard that, right? Okay. Let me just say this. That is not confirmed. They keep saying that is not true. They are saying this out here to the people. They're putting things up like this, saying that Haitian migrants are eating cats, guys. Eating cats and dogs, guys. They're putting out that narrative. Okay? And I'm going to be real. As a first generation Haitian American, this bothers me. I don't like this because this is the stuff that's been going on and trending out here in these streets. People putting out stuff like this, and then all of a sudden you see memes, you see photos of Haitians, let's just say, not even in America, but in Haiti. And they're sitting there going, see, they're here in America eating our pets. Now, I understand that there has been a large community of Haitian migrants in the Ohio area and all that. But at the same time, when you have people in Ohio, the officials in Ohio saying that this is not true and that this is all fake news, as he likes to say, the last place that needs to be that they need to be putting this ridiculous propaganda rhetoric out is in a doggone debate. So that's the only part that I saw that I was like, nah, man, nah, that's wrong. And I found that to be offensive because that's not helping. That's not helping him either. That was a bad move. That was a bad moment, in my personal opinion. Bad moment. Didn't need to go there. It didn't. But that's just my personal opinion. All right? Just my opinion. Okay? Because that speaks on my people. Okay? My heritage. My background. But even if it was even Puerto Ricans or Dominicans or Irish, you know what I mean? The British, whatever it may be, okay? It's still offensive and it was wrong. And so for me, I'm like, that's reckless. That's not right. Okay? Speak however you want to speak when it comes to your policies and how you want to run this country. But if you start putting out things like this that is not true, that is inaccurate, people are going to come. People are going to show up and show the receipts saying, hey, that's not true. It's just rhetoric that's being spat out here. And again, that's divisive rhetoric that's being put out here. You see, that's not good. But of course, she danced around. Okay. She danced around the question about the economy over the past 4 years. She most definitely put that conversation out here for sure. Okay. But then of course they talked about the termination situation. Okay. And of course, there are a few questions here. Can people get a termination at 9 months in the United States? Remember, they did have that conversation. They brought that up. Trump even said, yeah, there were states where even after the baby is born, you can terminate, so on and so forth. And one of the actual hosts of the debate was like, that's actually not true because that would be illegal and all that stuff, right? So that was interesting, right? That was interesting. But still, let's take a look at this, okay? In the United States, the ability to obtain a termination at 9 months of pregnancy, also known as a late term A, okay, is highly restricted. Okay, so terminations in the third trimester after about 24 weeks are generally rare and occur under specific circumstances. Federal law does not prohibit terminations. I'm going to use that word from now on, okay? At any stage of pregnancy. But states can regulate or restrict them after the point of fetal viability, usually around 24 weeks, as long as exceptions are made to protect the life or health of the mother. So again, very interesting, right? Most states do not allow elective terminations in the third trimester. Okay. However, in rare cases, an abortion might be performed after 24 weeks if the pregnancy endangers the mother's life or if the fetus has severe abnormalities that make survival outside the womb unlikely. We all know this piece, right? But it's not like, mom to be is pregnant, bringing out little baby, Jack into the world, and then suddenly she just goes, let me just terminate baby Jack real quick, and he's healthy as all get out, and he's been born. I'm alive, he's alive, but now that he's alive and breathing outside of my body, let's just terminate him. That is not true. So what Trump was saying is not true, not accurate at all. Okay. So it wasn't wrong for the host to sit there and go, Mr. President, what you just said is illegal. To perform that is illegal. Okay. So most, states limit abortions after 24 weeks unless there's an exception. Okay. It may be made to the protection of the mother's life or health, or in cases of severe fetal abnormalities. The majority of terminations occur in the first trimester. The third trimester terminations are rare and usually involve medical necessity. I think that's a very important piece of information. I think that we all should know, right? It's inaccurate what he was saying there. Inaccurate, okay? But let me pull this back up. But that's just the tip. That's just the tip. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the conversation here, right? Because there's plenty of other questions, okay, to put up here, okay? Because he talked about J6. We got to use these code words, unfortunately, because these platforms don't like us talking about these certain things as much. But he talked about this thing, and I wrote it down. He even said, outside of that, he's like, well, why aren't we, putting charges on the people in these particular cities during these riots and these protests and no. And I get what he's saying. I get it. But you got to remember, J6 was J6. J6 was J6. That was crazy. Okay. And a lot of people were hurt. And a lot of craziness happened right outside our nation's capital. It was absolute pandemonium. And I think that we can all agree on that at least, right? Aside from other things, okay? Aside from a billion other things that we can disagree on, we can at least agree that J6 was insane. And a lot of bad things happened there, period, okay? And yes, a lot of bad things happened at these protests, these riots, etc., when things went nuts. But a lot of people did get arrested in those riots and those protests. If they break the law, they get arrested. Remember, DNC, there was a bunch of protests going on outside, pro-Palestinians to pro-abortion, to every single type of person and every single type of organization that wanted to get their voices heard were outside the DNC. Some of them, a lot of people came out and started acting a fool. Remember, we covered some of these things. People got arrested. So I'm sure they caught charges, right? So I feel like anybody who's out here crossing the line, acting a fool, being absolutely dumb, taking it to J6 level, and I'm talking about protests and J6, you're going to catch a charge. You're definitely going to catch a charge. So, Nicole, let me just say this. So just because she says, keep it centered, you're leaning left. I'm not leaning left. I'm speaking facts. I'm speaking the truth. Okay? I'm not leaning left. I'm sitting right comfortably in the middle. All I'm saying is facts. And if somebody's saying something that's not correct, I'm going to correct them, right? Just like her talking about what's going on in the economy. The economy sucks. The economy is terrible. She did not answer that at all. Okay? Not once did she answer a question. She answered a lot of other questions. But when it came to some of these things that really did matter, she didn't answer them. Same thing with Trump. Okay? So, let us continue though, shall we? And it's funny because no matter what, if I say something about Kamala for like 5 seconds, y'all be like, "Oh, you leaning hard right, man. Damn." If I talk about Trump for 5 seconds, "Oh, you leaning too left, man. Damn." Nah, man, chill. Let me do my job. Let me cook. So moving on, okay? Let's see. One thing that Trump did say that I thought was very interesting at the very beginning, okay? At the very beginning, at the very end, I thought it was very interesting, right? That Trump said something that is so correct. He was like, "Oh, snap, mic drop, just being real," okay? And hopefully it's something that maybe Kamala will be able to readdress later on. Same thing with Trump when he said all those things that I think were unnecessary, right? Talking about migrants eating dogs and cats and stuff. That's just ridiculous in my personal opinion, okay? But let me just say this, though. He did say something that was very interesting at the end. He said, okay, if you're all about making change, like if Kamala's saying that she's all about change, she's been in office for 3.5 years. Why hasn't there been any change while she was in office? Sorry, but Trump's got a point there. Why hasn't she done anything? She's had plenty of time, and I get it. She's not the boss, as Trump said. She's not the boss, but at the same time, the policies that she wants to put out here, why hasn't she put anything out? Now, I get it. You know, Biden has his own policies. Biden has his own approach on certain things. There's not everything that he is going to do. She's just going to continue on carrying the torch in for the next 4 years. Hell no. She's got her own policies. She's got her own things that she wants to do. But at the same time, I am quite curious about that. Why wouldn't she try to implement some of those policies while she is vice president right now? The other question, though, too, and that was just what I was about to say, Deborah, just to push back, okay, to all of us, even myself, that sits there and goes, yeah, what about that? Kamala, right? How much can the vice president do while they're in office? You got to remember, she's got a boss, right? She's got a boss. She just plays second fiddle. He's playing lead, right? So how much can she actually implement? And then also on top of that, if she was to implement something, how much of it is going to be acknowledged that it was her doing? Think about that for a second, too. Think about that. How much of that is going to actually be, for sure, boom, Vice President Kamala Harris conducted that bill. She wrote up that bill. She pushed that bill. Would we know that? If Biden is the lead actor, right? Is the lead of the show? Are we going to know all the things that she does behind the scenes? Maybe not. Maybe not. But it is a good point. Trump did have a good point right there at the end. Now, he did threaten WW3, basically saying, you know, it's going to be worse than you ever seen, so on and so forth. I thought that was very interesting as well, kind of putting that in. But that's the other thing, too. Kamala Harris did put out and talked about it twice in this debate. Project 2025. She talked about that quite a bit during this whole situation, near the first half of the debate. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, is she trying to gaslight? Is she just trying to get him angry? Or does she have a point? Is it a solid point? Hold on, let me just cue this up. I just want to cue a little bit of this up. Of their faces as they're, where is it? In this debate. Where the heck is the freaking, here we go. Here's something. Okay. So it does make me wonder, right? When she's bringing those things up, is it her playing dirty? Or is it her having a solid point? It exists. Project 2025 does exist. Okay. That is a thing that most definitely exists. So when it comes to that, I think it's very interesting that she brought that up as well. And of course, he denies it. He says it has nothing to do with this. He has nothing to do with it. He does not condone it. Okay. In fact, he was condemning it in this debate, which is also very, very interesting. Again, we've heard other stories about him condoning it, okay, giving it the thumbs up, but he's saying live on the telly that he's not for that at all, okay? Let's see. We talked about the termination ban. The rallies was kind of funny, though, too. They talked about rallies, and of course, it turned into one of those things like an ego thing, an ego talk, which was interesting. Let's see. Moving on. Okay. He said his last piece. He had a strong point at the end. I still have those questions about that as well. I'm still worried. I'm still wondering about that, right? I still have those questions. It's not a solid, I don't have a solid reaction to this as of yet because I still am watching both of them, right? In my opinion, okay, I think that this was a fantastic debate. I thought it was electric. It was nice to see Trump go against somebody that's actually awake. I'm sorry. I know some people out here are very Biden loving, okay? But at the same time, she was there. She was present. She wasn't struggling to talk. She had her points very solid and all that. We've seen, like I said in the very beginning, so before everybody goes, oh, you're leaning left, man. Stop. We've already heard Trump say this stuff before. This whole thing was to see how Kamala Harris handles Trump. And she did fairly well, in my opinion. I know some people will be like, no matter what, they'll sit there and go, oh, Trump ate her for lunch. See what I did there? Trump ate her for lunch, right? And that's fine. That's how you see it. But she held her own. You can't deny that. She didn't fall all over all over herself. She didn't lose her stepping. She didn't forget what she was talking about. Like she's talking about tariffs, and next thing you know, she's talking about thinking that she's talking about Medicaid. Okay, because that's kind of what happened with Biden. All right, she was fully present and fully cognizant of the whole conversation. Okay, whole conversation. All right, so. Very interesting, nonetheless. Okay, did she win some of you guys over? I don't know. That's up to y'all. Okay, that is definitely up to y'all. All right, but let me get some of these super chats really, really quick. I appreciate all y'all for being here. All right, Tara, thank you so much. She gaslighted like she gaslighted like she never met him, but met him 5 times. This party is fun. The Pascal Show. Yeah, it felt like she was throwing in some things, some jabs just to get him, just to kind of get under his skin. But at the same time, if you really think about it, ain't that Trump's tactic too? Doesn't he get under his opponent's skin a little bit? Let's be real. Isn't that kind of his model? So maybe she was dishing him the same ish he dishes everybody else. Something to think about. Something to think about. Which? Thank you so much. Kamala Walls 2024. All right. Pink Ice says Trump 2024. All right. That's what's up. That's what's up. S Dubs, thank you so much. Has Kamala put up a plan? Please hit the like. I mean, she said a lot of things as far as like plans and policies in this debate. Now, has she posted them on her website? I have not looked into that, and I do not know, but that's definitely something we can look into in the very near future. Karina, thank you so much. Pascal for president. Hi, Pascal. Thanks for the live. Of course. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Haley, thank you so much. Just FYI, another what? Wait, when was this? 10:01. You lying. Okay, I'll take a look. Another one on the highway in Kentucky? What? You gotta be kidding me, man. Nah, man. See, a copycat. Hopefully Haley's just playing. But I'm gonna keep an eye on that. I'll look it up in a little bit. Okay. Wow. Someone said another one. Yep. Damn. Okay. I'll be looking into that. Damn. Oh, man. Beautiful Messy Ball. Thank you so much. Please see a tweet I tagged you in. Cat. Okay. I will take a look into that. Okay. But very, very interesting stuff. Okay. Very interesting debate. Very interesting situation here. What say you guys? Like I said, I did a very broad scrapes at the very surface of this whole thing. There's a lot more that we're going to look at as far as we're going to talk about tariffs. We got as far as Trump's economy policy or his economic policy. We got a lot of other things that we're going to be looking into, especially talking about the rise of crime in the country and all that stuff. We're going to talk a lot more about that stuff tomorrow for sure. Because I want to be able to get a chance to digest a little bit more of all that's going on here. And then, of course, grab a couple more things, write some things down, get some more ideas out, especially like talking about the Keystone Pipeline. That's one thing I had written in here as well, saying that, Trump saying Biden terminated the Keystone Pipeline. I want to look into that, talk a little bit more about that as well. Talking about the border. He even said, Trump said, hey, why don't you wake him up, because I know he wakes up around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wake him up and have him close the border. Right? Write something to close the border. I mean, the border is a problem. It most definitely is. Okay? And there needs to be something to stop this. What is it? Don't know. Is it really Biden's the Biden administration's full fault? I don't know, right? So curious. I'm wondering what was the thing that kind of opened up the borders like this in such an explosive manner, right? I am quite curious about that too. Alicia, thank you so much. Came in a little late, but thank you for the coverage. Of course. Thank you so much, Alicia. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Okay. But yeah, I'm going to look into this whole, let me see something really quick. You're saying another one? Another freaking one? Hold on. I don't see any. Where are you guys seeing about this assailant on the highway in Kentucky again? And where in Kentucky? Same area? Where, baby? Where? Because I'd like to know. Someone talk to me, because I'll look that up. And I might have to just end this live and start another live, right? To talk about that. But that's nuck and futz if that's true. I know it's but it's in London. Another one? Hold on. Let me see for myself. I don't really see any reports about. See, that's the thing, though. Yeah, another. No, that's. Yeah, I don't see anything about that anywhere. Maybe it's on Twitter, maybe. Let me see. Oh, yes. Let's not forget. Yeah, I already saw this. Okay. And this was a woman getting arrested for allegedly eating a cat in front of unaliving and eating a cat in front of her neighbor. It has not been confirmed. Okay, it has not been confirmed if this particular woman is from Haiti or anything of that sort. So that is something that I think is very, very interesting, right? But that is a story, just so you know, beautiful messy ball, because she just sent this to me. I know you guys can't see this, but that is a story that's been thrown around here, and apparently that has not been debunked, or that has been debunked as well. They say that is not that does not go with the stories about Haitians going around in Ohio eating up cats and dogs, okay? Which is so ridiculous that we're even having this conversation, all right? Absolutely ridiculous, okay? So just so that you guys know that. I've heard about this situation, and like I said, it's ridiculous, okay? And if officials are sitting here saying that is not accurate at all, yeah, they're just running around and saying things just to get people scared. Oh no, don't bring the migrants. Now they're eating our pets. Sorry, but that's just offensive and stupid and wrong. Okay, sorry, I said it. Okay, so just ridiculous. But let me see. I don't see anything about another one. I really don't. Yeah, they're saying another incident, but I do not see neighborhood. Okay. Yeah, I don't see everything I'm seeing right now. I mean, I see breaking news, like somebody on breaking news is saying, another situation, possibly several hit, and the monster, this assailant is still at large. But I don't know. I don't see anything about this. Hart County. Hold on, let me just see. Like I said, I don't see any live coverage about this at all. Okay. But I might have to hop off and hop back on and go live with you guys about this. Okay. Yeah, that just blindsided me big time, because that just threw me off. Okay. But yeah, let me see what's up. Let me see what's up about this. Okay. Because I still don't know where to find this. But yes, Gianna, thank you so much. Scanner app says active such and such. LNN Turnpike, Mundordville, that's a hard word to say. Mundordville, Kentucky, possible several hit, and the monsters at large. And the thing is it the same? They're saying it's not the same dude, right? So I don't know. Interesting. Beautiful message, Boss said. I wasn't saying she was a migrant. Okay. I was making a statement about how narratives get spun from one story. Yes. And that's exactly what I was trying to say. So no, I didn't. So my apologies. I misread your tweet, I guess. But yeah, they out here saying crazy stuff about these migrant things. And like I said, I think it's reckless and it's wrong and it's putting in the wrong type of narrative out here just so you can get votes. Oh, you American people, be scared, be worried. If you vote for her, you'll get people running around eating your household pets. You remember Fluffy? You remember Spike? Okay. Those, your little furry little pets will go bye-bye if these migrants show up. It's ridiculous. Vote for me, though. Then all your pets will be saved. I think that's really reckless. And what he said in that was reckless. That was the only part that was reckless on his part. Okay, she said plenty reckless too, right? So anyway, guys, yeah, I'm gonna look around and make sure I got some things. Okay. Yeah, let me get some of this stuff, and then I'm going to be back in another live, okay? So I appreciate you guys being here. Politics is frustrating. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're sitting on the fence and trying to stay in between and just trying to talk about things, because I already know that there's going to be people in here that feel one way and other people feel some other way. It is politics. I get it. Everyone thinks that they can run the world. Everyone thinks that they know how to drive this car, right? And the thing is that not everybody knows, and not everything is the right answer. And some may be the right answer, but there's going to be a corner of the world that disagrees with that answer, and so on and so forth. You can't please everybody, right? But at the same time, it is an important time in our history right now, seeing everything that's going down. Trump, Harris, all of this is pretty crazy stuff and very interesting nonetheless. So I appreciate you guys watching and spending the time with me and checking this debate out. And there's going to be plenty more, and we're going to be covering them all. Okay. So just get ready for it. Anyway, that is the show. I appreciate you guys. We will be talking more about this tomorrow for sure. Okay. Because like I said, I want to bring some friends on, break down more of the debate, get some more talking points put together from the debate itself, and have that conversation with you guys, okay? But I will be back on if I get everything going, if I know what the hell's going on really quick with everything that's with this other incident that's going on. I'll be back live to check that out. So please be sure to make sure that that notification bell is on. But before you leave, don't forget to hit that like button down below. Hit that reaction button. Don't forget to hit that follow button on all my other platforms. Hit that subscribe button, please, and thank you. All right. Hit that join button down below. Become a member if you appreciate how I tell these stories. All right. Everything from true crime all the way down to politics and pop culture. Okay. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that join button down below. Support. Check out that Patreon. Patreon.com/The Pascal Show. Check out my merch page. We got some new stuff. Straight out of nightmares. We got t-shirts and then some. Go check that out. Enjoy it. And I will talk to you guys very, very soon. Much love to you guys. All right. PascalMerch.com. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. I'll probably see you guys in like 5 seconds. Okay. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.